August 8th of 2008, got taken out by a kid in the truck. I had to lay there for about 20 minutes with pretty shattered up at about noon till the paramedics team scraped me off the ground. I was down to a house and a couple of vehicles. And my credit score down to 460. I mean, everything's devastated. And there's no way that taking all that would have made me whole. I suffered a hell of a lot so people can understand what it takes to get there.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Jackpot Show, where we talk about all things real estate, finance, entrepreneurship, and today we got a repeat guest. Actually, he was just on the show a month ago, but he gave me the first copy of his book, Redneck Economics, and I absolutely love the book. I have rarely highlighted as much in a book as I have in this book, so I call him up, and not only I didn't just get Aaron to come, I got Aaron and Eric both to come to join me on the show because Eric wrote the book, Eric illustrated the book. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us back, man, or having me back and letting him come the first time.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
No, I'm excited. All right, so let's jump right into the book. So first of all, introduce yourself quickly. Again, if somebody hasn't watched the show, just go 3 or 4 or 5 episodes back or whatever, something like 6 episodes back. It's like been at the recording a month, but by release it's probably 2 months since you've been there. So it's about 8 episodes back. But go.
Wow, you've done 8 since then. So Aaron Chapman, I finance investment real estate since 1997. Work with people nationally, actually internationally, buying real estate and help them set up their entity structures and then go into the real estate to build that long, I guess a monster portfolio to hand on to the next generation. I'm big into multi-generational business and being able to hand that off to grandkids and further on to let that endure.
All right. How about you?
I'm Eric Chapman. I have myself listed as Eric J. Chapman. There was another Eric Chapman out there doing art for a little while there, so we popped that on there. But I'm a realist, oil painter actually. I do. This is kind of my first venture really into the illustration thing, but I do fine art, oil paintings, and they've sold at galleries and whatnot, and I do commission work. So
he's had a lot of stuff here in the galleries in Old Town. So a lot of really cool. Those nights are awesome. We get friends. We'll go out, grab dinner, and then go just hit the galleries and go hang out.
Got a piece I'll be hanging up over in Scottsdale in December. This month.
Are you in town in December? Let's go. Grab your wife. We'll grab mine. We'll go hang out.
Yeah, their opening reception's on the 11th over at the Brent.
Art, as you guys probably walk to the house, you see like art all over the place in our house.
Well, she's going to buy a painting, dude.
Here we go. Yeah, he's committed.
There we go. Okay, so you wrote Redneckonomics.
And thank you for getting it right. That's awesome. Not a lot of people do. It's amazing how many people can get that right.
Yes, Redneckonomics. And the unconventional success by taking the beaten path. And it's all about ass beatings. So tell me, first of all, what is this book about?
Well, would you say that you're very successful, right? And I met you, it's got to be 2016 or 17. I'm like, first I noticed the IWC you had on. I'm like, okay, right on. This guy's know what he's doing. But you've always come across as one who's really had a life that had a lot of really cool things happening in it because you're always traveling. Did that come very easy? Were you spoon-fed all that? Did you achieve your success?
No, I mean, the reason why I underlined everything in this book is because it's in a funny way. A million times I had to laugh out loud in this book, but in a good, funny way, in a direct way, to a redneck kind of way, without saying that in a negative way.
Not negative at all.
It's full of like truths, of the real truths without any filter about what it takes to be successful. It's literally lesson after lesson after lesson after lesson, and anyone that has ever achieved anything can probably relate to Ozark.
I'm telling your story, right? And the story of everybody who has achieved any success. And really, I'm preliminarily laying out the story for anybody who wants to achieve some success. And the difficulty I believe that we have in life right now is the people we idolize, successful people we idolize, we can't identify with them. There's some guys out there that are on stages that are badass individuals, right? We love the David Goggins of the world and the other billionaires out there that you see, I don't know if Goggins is a billionaire, but he achieves things that it's superhuman. I have a difficult time identifying with a guy like that because he's talking about 200-mile runs at 50 whatever years old. Yeah, and he's had to have, his 5th knee surgery this year, things like that. I'm like, that's superhuman. So a lot of times I believe people are going to have a hard time identifying with the billionaires and the superhumans like that. but they can identify with myself and yourself. I mean, I told stories of some of the shit that I've been through in my life and the beatings I've taken. And I had an interesting interesting statement said to me by my father-in-law this last week. And he says, you endured one hell of a beating for the sake of everybody else, and the story needs to be told. And it was said in a different manner that, but yeah, I suffered a hell of a lot so people can understand what it takes to get there. And I believe you have, and other entrepreneurs have, but many like to sugarcoat that and just talk about how successful they are. They don't like to talk about the hell they endured. Not many people like to talk about the back seat of a shitty old car they had to sleep in when they were homeless. Not that I had to ever do that. I was blessed to never experience that. But those that did, and they avoid having that conversation. And I wanted to illuminate these things significantly for people coming up, because when you take the beating, you don't stop. I think too often people stop at the beating and say, I need to go back to something easier. No, the beating is what gives you the character traits and the habits and the things you need to achieve the success.
I think that's an angle. When I first started reading this, I was like, whoa, is he? I mean, I know you. We know each other for 10 years or more. But we don't know each other that well that I know exactly everything about you. So when I started reading it, I was like, well, is he taking this negative path of the beating? And I was like, because I like to be a positive person. I like to look at life from the positive side. I consider myself, I'm born lucky. Now that's a mindset thing. Of course, shit happens to me, but I always like to look at it from, if something bad happens, it's okay, what's the lesson in that? What I take and ultimately turns into something positive. And if you have the mindset of you're born lucky, you see life through a filter. Mm-hmm. And it's not a rose filter that nothing bad happens, but you choose to see the more positive things versus the negative things. And it makes life a little bit easier.
Well, we're all born lucky. The problem is some of us don't want to see it that way.
I think you're also seeing the positive things while the negative things are happening. That always makes all the difference.
Exactly, yeah. And there's of negative things happening. We own a multifamily property, it was hit by a hurricane, the insurance didn't pay. Now I put $3.5 million of my own money into that, and I'm only getting probably 2 of it back, right? So I'm losing.
By the grace of God, did you have the $3.5 million to put in there, right?
Yes, exactly, right. And I'm saving the investors' money in the process, right? I'm dealing with insurance companies, with lenders, with things, with stuff there. As an entrepreneur, you deal with so much stuff that nobody can even imagine. I think the reason why many people don't talk about it, is that because they realize that the normal people out there don't relate to it. They're like, what are you complaining about? You're living in a big house, driving a beautiful car, traveling all over the world. Stop the complaining, right?
Well, it's kind of like what I was saying in the book, the must be nice thing. I absolutely hate it when people say it. It's you don't know what it takes to have something that seems nice, but sometimes the beating may or may not be worth it. All depends upon your perspective. Yeah. And that's what it really boils down to. I want to really illuminate that beating part of it. Then if you can understand it and then get past that and have the perspective of knowing the beating is a blessing all the time. To me, it's been an accelerated gift it's the divine gift of accelerated education. Yeah. And you really educate really quickly when you're taking a punch.
Oh yeah. That is true. Literally and physically, absolutely. Now, let me read something out of Ass Beating 2. You're full of shit. Everyone has grand goals and aspirations. They dream of acknowledgement, power, ability to appeal to the opposite sex. The list continues. Yet so few achieve anything of note. Why do you lie to yourself? Why do you look at those who achieve anything that you seek and hunt for holes in their armor or poke at? You're jerking off. Tell me what about that.
So, it's easy to justify if we're not achieving anything. We think about it, we want it, we dream about it, but we don't do anything about it. It gets back to what becomes kind of a conversation of religion when people say, you just have to have faith in something that's enough. And some say, well, faith without works is dead. Well, it boils down to that. You have to have enough faith to think about it and want to have it, but then you have to have enough effort. You got to put the effort in, the work to make it happen. That's the works part of it. You need both of them. You can't just sit there and dream about something and go walk on hot coals and say your aspirations, but sit on your ass. You got to make something happen. And then if it's not happening in your life because you're dreaming about it, you're saying your aspirations every morning, you walked across some coals and you're thinking positively, but your life is still crap because you haven't gotten up to do anything. So then you look at people who have done something and you're saying something about, you're poking holes in what they have happening and you're making it seem like they had some sort of mystical leg up, or they had they're superhuman where you can't do that. No, you just haven't gotten off your ass yet. So quit jerking off, quit wasting time and get out there and start moving. Action is what gets everything done. But you also have to have a direction. You have to have a want. You have to have a desire. You have to have an end goal you're shooting for. And then you have to get off your ass, grab the shovel, and start hunting for gold.
That's right. And while you do that, you're going to get some ass beatings.
100%.
And how did they accelerate learning for you?
I learned a lot about me when I took a beating. And I started to notice the things that are of value when they weren't so valuable when you're caught up in everything that's going on, you're caught up in the race. But when I took that beating, the biggest beating I ever taken was the 101 and the 202 interchange there, August 8th of 2008, got taken out by a kid in the truck. And you know what it is like here in Arizona in August, and you wouldn't willingly lay down on the pavement in August. I had to lay there for about 20 minutes with pretty shattered up at about noon till the paramedics came and scraped me off the ground. And when you lose your ability to think, my memory would recycle every 3 minutes, my ability to walk, my really financially was completely devastated through that whole situation. You learn what kind of grit you have and what you can take. And when you know what the amount of beating you can take, all the little things are nothing. The stuff that used to irritate you and piss you off and slow you down and derail your day, it becomes nothing now. For me, it's like there's worse things. Everything that I ever experienced now, there's worse things. Because I've had experienced worse things. So I don't get slowed down by the little problems anymore.
How did the family react to that when that happened?
Well, I was kind of there in real time. I was waiting in traffic. I'm like, man, well, let's get this going. Peel this guy off. We got to get, I had no idea it was my brother, So that kind of woke me up to go, hey, there's every inconvenience that you might think is an inconvenience in someone's life and what's happening there. And I remember just us all being just absolutely in shock, devastated. And it was just the strangest thing. When they wheeled him out, he was just, laying there, just looking around. He probably doesn't remember any of that. We're all saying hi to him and he was just completely zoned. But it was incredible though to watch. I remember him showing up at the office because I used to work in the mortgage industry for like 20 years before I started doing the art thing. And him showing up at the office in the wheelchair, for the first time, and then eventually, relearning how to walk. And that was just incredible. And I'm sure that was like a demarcation line for him, like if that's the right word. I'm not sure. Anyhow, but I think that's probably a line in the sand for him as far as this is his life before and this is his life after. It's a turning point. And for a lot of us, we recognize the turning point too in him. When that happened to him, he became a different person. He was very much a different person after that.
How so? I mean, I imagine, but where were you before? Like now you look at that with a steel hat, regular job.
I was a significantly arrogant individual at that time, very full of myself. I didn't have a whole lot of. I found that if I didn't have a use for you, I had no use for you, type of thing. And I put more value in what I was doing than in the individuals I was doing it for. And I'm sure there was a lot more things I can get into about the depth of who I was at that time, but there was not a lot of depth. And I think the conversion happened when I'm laying in my bed in the hospital, and I had 4 kids at the time, and my youngest was 2. And I saw her climb on my bed and did something really funny and then jumped off and crawled off and went a different direction. And I recognized after I chuckled about it, and it's one of the few memories that stuck. There's a lot of memories that didn't stick, but I realized at that moment, I will never see that again. That's gone. That is now a memory lost to eternity. And then I looked at my other kids that were there. I'm like, what have I missed of theirs? Because I was not paying attention. And when I got married very young, 22, I think, 22, 23 years old, and I had my first kid within, my wife was pregnant within 6 months of marriage. I was not ready to take on another individual. I didn't even know who I was at that point. So now I've been taking responsibility on since I was 15, 16 years old. Cattle, we were running cattle when I was in high school, and Dad was handing me a ton of responsibility, and I just had to become an adult from 15 on. And so then when I started to get a little bit older, I was not focused on the adult stuff because I could really focus on business or whatever else and kind of goofing off. And I had to change at that point. I changed significantly when I come to those realizations of what things I've missed out on. Didn't mean I got perfect overnight. No, I had a lot to rewire and redo in my life, but I mean, it's still an ongoing thing, even at 51 years old.
Yeah, I used to work for him. I mean, as an assistant and doing different things at the office. And of course, as you may recall, like the real estate market was insane. 2004, 2005, 2006, everything was going up and up. And his crash happens in '08, which is when everything collapsed too. So it coincided with that. So leading up to that, I mean, we got along, we're brothers, but he wasn't the kid I knew growing up. And, it was all about the business, get the job done, whatever. What he said is absolutely true. And sometimes it made it hard, hard to work with the guy. Not to speak ill of him right here in front of him, but at the time,
You're not speaking to me or speaking to somebody else. Go
that's
ahead.
true.
Step on that some bitch. I don't care.
That's true. That's true. I kind of, he would grate me. He'd get on my nerves, and I'd get on his nerves or whatever too. But man, when all that happened, the humbling took place. His priorities were different, and I think it did a lot for our relationship. I'm closer to this man now than I have ever been in my life. So
Well, that's the biggest example of an ass whipping that turned into a blessing and afterwards, right? Because afterwards you change everything. And in the book you talk about multiple things, even the reaction to the accident of not suing the kid. And that's a pretty big decision. Like when I read that touched me a lot. Can you talk about that? What went through your mind that led you to the kid was at fault, probably had some assets with everything. The attorney came to you said hey, we could sue them to the wazoo and we could get a big judgment for that. And you decided not to do that. The reasoning behind it was impressive, I thought.
Well, I have, as I mentioned, the kids there, and I start recognizing that I have children and they're going to age to that point. And I somehow, I don't know what happened in my brain at that time, because that was not the man that I was. That individual that I was, that we both spoke about prior to that, would have all day long gone after what he deserved, right? And I put myself in the shoes of his father, because now I did have kids. I was starting to warm up to the fact I had kids. And I literally had to go through this accident to warm up to the fact that I had kids. And I attribute that to recognizing Maggie doing what she did and noticing that these moments are gone and how many moments have I lost in my kids' lives. And then I put myself in that father's position, and I thought, I can imagine what he's going through, because I saw the police reports where the kid wrote that it just looked like some guy had a motorcycle accident until everybody fingered him as the cause. And then he had to do another paragraph about what he was doing. Clearly he was at fault. So now we're looking at, they didn't have enough insurance where the insurance would have covered everything. So we had to go out and look at the assets. I'm looking at the assets that they had, and there's no way there was enough, but not enough to have really made a big dent in what I had going on in my world. There was just the first week in that hospital was $1.7 million. Oh, wow. And I was in there for several weeks. And then I had ongoing treatments and had ongoing surgeries. I had probably, I think, 5 total surgeries as a result of that accident, piecing me back together. And then, of course, the loss of all my, I had multiple real estate, forms of real estate that I lost as a result of the market took a bunch of my cash. I had lost vehicles, all that kind of stuff. I was down to a house and a couple of vehicles. And my credit score went down to 460. I mean, everything's devastated, and there's no way that taking all that would have made me whole. It had been a piece of a bigger mountain that we had to climb. I thought, I don't want this guy to have to worry about that. A single careless act. That's all it was. Is a moment's mistake, and this man loses everything. What would that have been me? How would I have felt if one of these children did that? And I love these kids more than anything, even though I hadn't shown it well enough up to that point. What if I had to make that decision with him? And I would willingly give whatever for the sake of my family members, but we shouldn't have to. And that's what I told him. Listen, no, it's not going to make me whole, and I'm not going to devastate a whole other family, and I will still be devastated. And then I got to learn more about how compassion works and how meekness is. When you get into the Bible and you start reading the Beatitudes, and if a person wants to try and understand what I think is the greatest business book of all time, which is Matthew 5, and it talks about meekness. And when you say meek to somebody, what do you normally envision? What pops in your head when you say that's a meek individual?
Yeah, it's more like, it's not necessarily a compliment. It's more like a weaker person.
Somebody who's frail.
Frail, yeah.
But in reality, it's Jordan Peterson describes it as a monster who has under voluntary control. Basically, a meek person is somebody who is, or you hear Joe Rogan say, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. He's the warrior in the garden who has himself under control, that can be calm that stays his hand when he doesn't really need to react. That person, that stoic person, has control of their emotions. That's a meek person. I started to understand the power of meekness. And when you're around people that have the capability to literally react and destroy, and they don't, the respect you have for that person goes up significantly. Exactly.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep. Yeah. Basically, that's why I wear my hat that says SGOC on it. I operate my life like a silverback on coke. You have to go into
what it means?
Silverback girl on coke. You have to go into life with the ferocity of a silverback on coke, but you have to keep it under control and harness it and focus it where it needs to be focused. And so I always have to remind myself to keep that side in check, because that guy would come out all the damn time prior to the accident in 2008. Somebody flips me off on the road, you better have a fast freaking car and you better be armed, because I will pull over and I'll drag your ass out of that vehicle. I got in fights on the side of the road a lot. And I would hit the ceiling really quickly. That's because I didn't have control. I was not an individual that could control himself well, and that's not a good person. So you start learning these attributes, and it serves me better than it does anybody else.
Makes perfect sense. Now, switching over to you for a second, like you illustrate those things beautifully. Like, for example, the gorilla right next to him. Where was it? There was just a second ago.
I just
here.
realized I forgot the Coke.
That's all right.
We'll put it in the special edition.
Yeah, we can do the shirts. There'll be a dime bag on there somewhere.
There's Aaron, and there's the gorilla, the silverback next door. So, how you switched from working in the mortgage world to being an artist? That's a big of a switch too. It's like, how did that happen? And then how did you come up with the illustrations earlier? Like,
well, I've been drawing.
Did you get some ass whippings on that too, in order to make it to that?
The whole book
to that
position.
An artist's life is an ass whooping.
It was a big ass whooping, that's for sure. I've been drawing. I've been doing art all my life. I mean, throughout, even while I was working in the mortgage industry, I was doing commissions, and I did a lot of stuff. To have a piece in a museum. It was so. But I always wanted just to do art. But I'd been in mortgages for like 20 years, and I was doing fine. I was doing well. I didn't feel fulfilled. I didn't feel like I was really pursuing what the gifts I have, And so one night, I'm laying in bed and I just feel depressed about it all. I'm like praying. I'm like, I'm grateful for my job, but I don't feel like I'm going anywhere. And so the very next day I woke up and I got laid off. It was like, oh, okay. So it's like God saying, all right, this is what you
Not
wanted.
by your brother, right?
No, this is. Oh yeah, I stopped working with him a long time ago. No, I was working for a totally different company.
Just to make sure here.
Totally different company. We had no business connection that way at all. But I'm thinking, okay, and I had a little bit of a severance, but we had just started talking about this book just some few months before, and this is not, like I was saying, this is not the type of book that I imagine a person would illustrate. But as I'm reading it, Aaron, the way he's so verbose, obviously the things that you read in that book, how the heck are you going to illustrate some of it? You quit jerking off and all this stuff. I'm like, oh my goodness, how am I going to do this? But it actually lent itself to a lot of imagery. So the first couple of times I read it, I just looked for what type of imagery comes out. And we decided to settle on an illuminated manuscript sort of parody a little bit.
With the redneck groove.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of symbolism. It's chock full of art history things, inside jokes, or just little bits and pieces here and there. It's peppered throughout. And it was really fascinating. It was an odd book to illustrate because I illustrate in a way that I don't actually do. I did it all in watercolor, which I don't paint watercolor. I'm an oil painter. I decided to take it on as a challenge and approach it in a very different way. And I think that it helps support the book and makes it better than
it does. Absolutely. It's beautifully done. Even the cover is like really gorgeous. And in a weird way, both realistic and not.
Yes.
Right?
Well, I'd researched, I looked over 70,000 images of illuminated manuscripts, and I saw these different styles, and I kind of just let the whole book kind of settle into a groove. There's a chapter called "Quit Jerking Off," where he mentions the 10 Commandments, And I
In the
started-
same chapter.
Yeah, in that same chapter. And, you know, and I ended up doing what's called a bacchanal, which is that it's like that big wine festival to Dionysus or to Bacchus and the revelry. And then I connected that with what happens in the book of Exodus when Moses is coming down the mountain with the 10 commandments and everyone's got the golden calf. So there's like hints of all this. And, you know, it was cool to make those connections. So I have things that point to the book, but also point to the modern play that we find ourselves with people and the things they're engaged in. So if you look at the imagery of what's going on down there with all these people, you see all these connections, you know. So hopefully people look at it and they find things that resonate with them. And I think the other thing is as you read it and you see these oddball images, it will help you retain the things you're reading because he's throwing out things like that. He's using visuals as a good descriptor of what he's trying to talk about. And my hope was that it would help kind of embed that in your mind when you read it so that it's not a book you pick up, read, you forget, and move on. It's something that stays with you.
Well, it's awesome. When we're traveling, we'll be going to different podcasts or stuff. We were just in Miami together. We're going to Indiana tomorrow. And we'll be talking about things in the book, and he'll point out stuff that I didn't even notice in the artwork. Mm-hmm. There's little tiny fine details that you don't notice unless you're talking to the man himself. So it leads me to appreciate even more what he put into it. He's not lying about looking at 70,000 image. Mm-hmm. He looked at all these different styles on how to put it together. He created the different philosophies on how to do this, adding in silver leaf and gold leaf and copper leaf and things to that nature. And even though there was a cost to it, I probably paid less than a third of what you really hold in your hands. You know, so if somebody wanted to commission him for every individual painting in there, it'd be over $100,000 of artwork there. Mm-hmm. So what I tell everybody, if you don't even like the words, don't even read the damn thing, just appreciate the art. Mm-hmm. The art's absolutely unbelievable. And I have all the originals, and it's awesome to be able to go through them and look at them. They're just a bit to hold on to because they're all the most of the images inside, they're all watercolor. They're on a board.
They're on panel.
Yeah, they're on panels. So it's a little tougher I got to figure out where we're going to hang them. They're all stacked.
Clay board, yeah.
So. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So part of the book, like actually now you are, back to Aaron for a second, you're now, and have been for a long time, one of the top performers in the mortgage industry for investors particularly, right? So you do, part of the book says you sometimes do 100 transactions a month, right? So coming back from that injury, coming back to some failed business relationships, to some partnerships that then they booted you out again and things like that. There's a whole bunch of ass beatings, as you mentioned. Which ones would you think is probably the top 2 or 3 that one really needs to internalize in order to get where they want to go?
Well, I think it's taking the time to understand why the ass beating took place. What are you supposed to learn from it? A lot of things that you mentioned, right? How you're learning from those things and what pivots you can take from it. Because every single one of them were great. I actually had a YouTube show for a short time that we did with some friends. We'd ask everybody, what was the best, worst thing of your life? Meaning, what was the worst thing that could have happened that ends up being the best thing that needed to happen for yourself and for your business. Everything that comes of value comes with a price, period. So you pay the freaking price. And there's no 1 or 2 of them that were the best one for me. The accident, I needed it to change who I was. And then when it came into the business ones where I had to start over at zero because of a firm deciding to kill all that business that I was doing, they were scared of the type of business I was doing. It happened with a couple different firms. Or what we had with a partnership.
And it wasn't that you're doing bad business. You're just working with allowing people to buy multiple properties, which in the eyes of the lender, expose them to too much risk.
Well, when you start thinking about an individual having too many houses, that's a very scary thing. But if you're dealing with people you're coaching and helping to understand how to run real estate as a business, it's a whole different thing. Mm-hmm. It's not a person just buying houses. They're responsible for what they bring in capital-wise through their job to pay for these. They actually run each home as a business. So when people talk about passive real estate investing, like, there's no such thing. You got to really look at this from a business perspective. That's where the success will come. And when it was early on, a lot of these banks, they wanted to deal with it, but they weren't quite certain how to deal with it, and they get scared. But we've had a lot of success over the years. I've had Fannie and Freddie come and audit when I was with the company. It's like, you guys are doing a lot of investment stuff, and we're not sure about this. When they started looking at the performance of those loans, they outperformed everything within the firm, had the best performance. And then when you have a partnership go bad because he saw dollar signs, if he would have pushed me out, end up not working out because of the reason why he did it. He did it for selfish reasons. I took what I learned from him as an individual. He's very, very intelligent. And I took that and incorporated it to my team, and we just grew exponentially. We did it quickly. But again, quick growth sometimes is hard to deal with too. So we had to suffer through what it is to have quick growth. And it's a lot of those long hours so there's nothing comes without a price, is want everybody to know. You got to be willing to dictate what price you're willing to pay for what success you want to have. And you have to intentionally go after it, like a silverback on Coke, and be willing to take on the pain that it is and fight through that, but also have enough compassion for the people you're working with to help them come along too. You don't force people out and do it all on your own and try and do this thing where it becomes very selfish. It's got to be something that has a higher meaning and a higher purpose than just getting paid.
And loving the taste of blood. Talk to me about that. When I heard that, I was like, interesting way of looking at it. Because it's almost like, again, back to the initial point, when people ask you, particularly if you're in the coaching business, people ask you if people would know how hard it is to actually build a business to scale, very few people would do it. Mm-hmm. You get started because of the excitement of the prospect of the business, financially, time, fulfillment, whatever it is, ideally a combination of all of them. And then you start getting hit. You start getting trouble. You start getting the whacks into things and the stuff wrong and things like that. But now you're in the middle of it and you kind of have to work your way through it. What you're talking about sounds almost more deliberate in a way that you're like, okay, I'm going in there knowing that I'm gonna get my butt whipped, that I'm gonna that I'm gonna taste some blood. But you say I almost have to look forward to it.
You have to enjoy it. You have to enjoy the battle that it is. And that's where loving the taste of blood came from, because you're never going, if you can't stand that flavor and you wish that life was nothing but lemonade and brownies, you're not going into the right thing. Because you're not going to have that flavor on your tongue hardly at all as an entrepreneur. And so you're going to be tasting that copper taste of blood all the time. You got to get used to it. You actually get to where you like it and where you crave it, because that's going to lead you to the next thing. And I equate that to the fighters, man. I mean, think about how many people can jump in a ring and willingly know you may be stronger, faster, and better, but there's a good chance that somebody's just going to lay a punch on you that's going to suck. And until you get in the ring with that guy, you have no idea what you're up against. And some people, they love it enough that they can't wait to get hit. They want to feel what they can take on. I have that quote from Seneca at the very beginning, and I'll let you, the reader, figure that out. I'm not going to tell you that. You got to get the damn book and figure it out for yourself. But it's one of the most amazing quotes when it talks about getting out there and getting things done, and how you don't know anything about yourself until you go take a beating. We have so many people who have yet to prove themselves. We have a culture and a society that has taken away everybody's ability to prove themselves from the very, very beginnings of life. You get into grade school. I don't know about you, but I used to get in fights all the time. They've taken that from our kids. They don't have the ability to go slug it out on the playground and literally try and defend themselves. And that's a negotiation process between you and somebody else. And sometimes it's you're backing away till you're not taking it anymore. Then you realize where your pushing points are. Our kids don't get that now. So now they're going to life unprepared because we've taken away from the basic fundamental of understanding human dynamics.
I haven't gotten into many fights at all, but I can relate on it without the fight part of it. That basically,
I can help you change that.
I bet you can. But I agree with you. I mean, I agree that we actually need to be the warrior in the flower field, right? We need to be strong. And that entire concept, you talked about toxic masculinity and things like that, it's a bunch of bullshit. Mm-hmm. I mean, it exists. It exists.
It's only toxic to weakness.
It exists if somebody is crazy, mm-hmm. And then goes out there and abuses it and things like that. Then it's negative. But it's a strength that is masculine, that is positive, that is actually a shoulder to lean on, particularly when you know that you can't protect those loving you, those around you, but you choose to only take action, physical action in emergencies, mm-hmm. right? I mean, that's what the entire Asian martial arts world is designed on. They're like, it's like when you watch Karate Kid, mm-hmm. like Mr. Miyagi, it's his goal is to never fight.
Yeah.
Right? but to be prepared to beat everyone.
Yep.
But ideally never use it because you don't have to, but knowing that you can is a huge amount of strength.
Again, that was another example of meekness.
Yeah.
A very, very, very.
Yeah. And I like that. And I do agree that we bring out, you talk about the kids and you guys you guys grow up together. Obviously you're a little younger, but you had to rope the cattle and the things and the stuff too.
Oh yeah. I was there. My dad woke me up at 4 a.m. to go bale hay and junk. I hated it. I hated it at the time. Now I miss it. Now I wish that we still had the farm. I wish I had that opportunity to do that again. I didn't appreciate it back then.
I had every freaking second, except for when we were having to go clean the ditches. Man, that sucked. That's the only thing that sucked.
Yeah, digging ditches. Yeah, cleaning them.
Yeah, I did do that. Yeah, and see, when you look at everything we're talking about here, I think that having strong humans that have the very, very capable humans that are focused, that withhold when it's not necessary, I think it kind of gets to a statement I heard a while back. I can't remember how many thousands of laws in this country because we can't follow the first 10.
Mm-hmm.
If we can get that figured out and everybody live in that type of existence, can you imagine a world that we live in where everybody has mutual respect? There wasn't people stepping out where they shouldn't be, and everybody was just helping each other. It'd be an interesting environment. I have questions for you because I'm looking at this as you're flipping pages, man. You got a lot of marking in that. So my mother actually has read this 5 times. I didn't let her read the manuscript at all. I wanted, because she has a lot of influence over me and over both of us. And she's a Hispanic woman. She'll whoop my ass if she doesn't like what's going on. I'm 51 years old. She'll still chase me around with a shoe. But she's read it 5 times. She got marked up and all kinds of stuff. But she's giving me her reasons. I'm curious, what led you to mark it up like that?
I think a lot of the things, I want to say that in the best way possible that I can say it. Nothing in this book is new, but it's said in a way that it hits home, right? That it reminds me of things that I've neglected. It reminds me of things that people out there are neglecting. It reminds me of things that people need to be reminded of. And it reminds me, it has a lot of truth that I agree with, that the world needs to know about. So when I mean that nothing is new, I mean it, I don't mean like, oh yeah, I don't have to read it. No, I think most books have nothing new in them, right? It's only very few books that can formulate it in a way that you're like, I gotta take that into consideration. And particularly I like the combination of like, when you take the religious angle, or like the Ten Commandments, the different kind of things, and you combine that almost like with a pretty rough kind of style, rough in the sense of like tough and the ass whipping and the ass beating and things like that, and that's a unusual combination, but it works extremely well, and it's one of the books that I will be recommending to everyone out there. I've done a presentation this morning. I can't recommend it yet because it's not yet out, but
you can recommend it now because you can order it now.
When we do that, okay, I wouldn't know that, but when we do that in January, when we do the next kind of like bigger challenge or things like that in our land business, and in January, I'll be having that one as one of the main books to recommend, because it's just said in an uncomplicated but straight to the point, very truthful way, that just makes sense. That just like talking about, like, I don't even know where to go in the book. Like, for example, the entire upbringing kind of thing, that what you just mentioned, about kids today are not being disciplined, not being shown what's right around, don't have any consequences for anything that they do. They have like participation trophies and all this kind of stuff. And that's on the football field or the soccer field, but even in their own home. And I'm immediately thinking about, how did I bring up my daughter? Mm-hmm. And I'm happy to say that she's learned consequences. Now, don't run around with a shoe and chase her. Right? Not the old style anymore.
We're not saying our mother beat us with a shoe.
Of course not.
She will still chase my ass with a shoe. She's slowing down a lot. She's in her 70s, so I'm not exactly, she's probably throwing across the room.
But from the point of view of like, she has bad grades in something. Now she has straight A's, but there's an occasional bad grade. It's like I don't go fight the teacher of it. It's like, Sophia, what did you do? We're like, well, I didn't study enough. Well, okay. It's your responsibility. So what am I going to do about it? How are you going to fix it? Well, I need to put up a study plan. Great. your responsibility. I can say that in the entire high school period, over the last 12 years, she was a senior in high school, I had never talked to a single teacher to interfere on my daughter's behalf, because it's not my freaking job to do that. Like, it's if the teacher teaches reasonably proper things, then it's my daughter's job to live up to that teacher and figure out how she can get that A if she really wants that A.
Yeah, and we're stealing from our children's future by not.
By helicopter and operate, by meeting other parents and influencing their parents over whatever kind of stuff.
Blocking consequences.
My dad was a teacher, and he didn't get wrangled in. And we slugged it out on the thing, not in fist fights, but in word fights and in wrestle pushing and things like that. But I agree, this is all healthy development stuff, because if you can't figure out in your teenage years how to get along with somebody, and you don't develop that skill, you gotta be one of those whining 20-something-year-olds that scream because words hurt them.
Or you guys forcing an outcome that was not her true outcome, right? And that doesn't do anything for anybody. It's, what we do is we're stealing our children's future, and we don't allow them to experience the consequences of mistakes.
Yeah, if our parents had to talk to the teacher, that meant we were in trouble. That meant I remember going to his school once because of that.
As a freshman, I got in enough trouble. They were going to kick me out of school that my mom decided, my mom and dad decided that they brought the whole family to school. I mean, from the youngest all the way to my high school sister, and they followed me around all damn day long. Now, you can imagine, so I'm getting in fights all the time. I'm in junior high, and they want to try and prevent me from getting in fights by bringing my whole damn family. That only created more shit for me to take, and then I'm slugging it out some more. But it was, luckily we moved right after that.
Oh, and Dad wanted to see if you had good moves, and he was on matches.
It's like, it was rough. But it was all self-imposed, right? I started a lot of crap, and actually, I didn't have a lot of patience for people, and it was really, really stupid. But
the impressive thing, and again, and the incredible thing is how you changed from now, because I know you as one of the kindest people I know. Even in the book, you keep talking about how at the end of the day, the most importantly is to not run the journey alone, to not take that journey with you. Like your brother illustrates the book, right? Your guys said as a team, you run. There's no point in winning this all alone. You got to bring the team along. You got to build the team. You got to have the team participate at all of this. So there's some incredible leadership lessons in that book that perhaps we want to finish up with. And then I want to make sure that people know how to buy the book, because guys, it is a fantastic book. Go get it. It's jam-packed. I read it in like 3 evenings, and it's like 50 pages at a time. And I kept underlining, kept circling, kept thinking. And as soon as I'm going to pre-order a couple of books, I want my daughter to read it in spite of the language.
That's without Mark,
or perhaps the book because of the language. No, I'm not going to have her read this one. I don't want her to read what I underlined. I want her to underline her own stuff.
And that'd be cool to see what she underlines versus you. That'd be really, really awesome to see. And you said something and I had a thought, but now it's gone. So that's how my memory works. I got 8 concussions and I got memory as long as a hangnail. So
it was about the kindness, and it was about probably how you bring other people along.
Bringing people along. What's interesting about that, it is a level of kindness and a level of leadership, but it's also a level of motivation. Mm-hmm. He's come to meet a lot of these podcasts. So what it is like, I'm pushing the book, not just to sell the book, but I want people to know that you can get art done by this someday.
Yeah.
Right. And
that's mother you're talking about.
Yeah. And it's not, there's different words. If I broke up into 3 words, that's different.
Yeah,
but one, you get to see what range he has. You've got an outer cover that's done in a style of Hans Holbein the Younger, who did Henry VIII. Mm-hmm. Then the inside, you have a whole different style. The 40-some-odd-year-old son sitting next to me is extremely talented, and you can actually have them. We've got some we're working on to make sure that's a possibility.
Yeah, I want to know about what you want to know more details, how people can get a hold of you definitely too, because this is beautiful art. And I also love that you did a switch. You both did a switch. You both went completely different. Now, did his change influence you and inspire you, or the other way around, or?
You mean the change that from resulting the accident and that sort of thing? Yeah, I suppose so. I remember him talking to me about the projects he had leading up to it, and some of the things he was working on, and how all that flipped. And he was just like, you know what? I think I'm finally realizing what's most important. And for me, I have a young growing family, and so it helped me evaluate that a little bit more. And then, of course, in my life, I had some big family changes that occurred when my first wife passed away. So, you know, I think that kind of helped prepare me to look at my family with just, you know, it would just be a few years later when that would happen for me to take advantage of the time I had with my kids after seeing what happens to him. So, so that was, you know, I don't think I've really thought about it as I do now. Yeah. I mean,
Because sometimes it takes one person to make like a drastic shift for particularly everyone that's close to it to see like, I can actually do that shift too. Or do the opposite, like, which you also talk about, that people fight you when you want to change because they don't want to see you change, because it means that
it illuminates their own lack of change in their own life. So they don't want that. They want to be comfortable in their situation. He mentioned what happened to him. You know, like I had my big devastating accident. That was me taking that on. I got to watch this man take on the loss of his wife. And I've never heard anguish like that. That was life-changing for me. Because not only did he have to deal with the fact that he lost his wife and has 3 kids, and how old was the youngest? She was less than a year.
She was 11 months old.
11 months old. So we took the 3 kids while he went and had to go to Utah to identify her body and deal with the arrangements there, because her family was there and that's where she was at the time. And we took the 3 kids. And then I remember we came to pick the kids up to go home. And I watched him load them in the van. I'm like, damn, that's his foreseeable future for right now. And it was heart-wrenching to hear him when he got the news, because my mom got the news first. And my mom calls me up just losing it, frantic. And we had to drive out to his place. It's about a 45-minute drive. And mom was getting all the emotion out in the vehicle. Mom is an extremely emotional person. And she's unbelievable human. My parents were unbelievable people. But she had to get all that emotion out so she could come in and just be and let him have his emotion. And so it was a very, very volatile ride down there. And then to hear him having to hear that news, it was something. So we've had some really, really defining things in our lives. And if you don't take time to recognize some of those defining losses, we're all of us on the precipice of defining loss all the time. You need to understand that loss, how it defines you, you get to decide at that point. And you can decide it for better, or you can use that as a reason to completely collapse your life. You know, and this book has been something of one, I was told I had to write it. I didn't anticipate writing it. Robert Allen.
Yeah, I mean, you work with Robert Allen, who is one of my heroes. Like when I started out with the land business overall, with even getting out of corporate America, the internet was around, but people still had dial-up internet at the time. So I resorted to books for motivation. There's YouTube. I don't even know if it existed. At 1999, 1998 or so, barely, or if it did, a few geeks used it, and I didn't yet. And so I bought books and real estate and motivational books. And the number one person's book that I bought, multiple, which is right outside that door, is Robert G. Allen. So when I got to meet him a few years, or about 10 years ago or so, I was like, meeting your hero kind of moment. And since then we've become good friends, but you have him actually write the foreword to your book.
Well, ultimately,
and he actually said, "I've never read a book like this in my life." I thought that was funny.
He's so complimentary. I've got a video from when you first saw the actual finished hardcover. But Robert, when we met, he talked about how to write a book. I thought he was going to talk about real estate because I knew the name, but I never read any of his stuff because I stopped reading up until I turned 40. Well, then here he is talk about how to write a book. And, you know, these are the 10 mistakes most people make. I made all those mistakes on other stuff I wrote. So after my accident, I wrote 370 pages of just lessons for my kids. I said, hey, maybe I can get some of this published. And it didn't publish all that awesome. I am releasing each chapter by itself, like its own little dime novel from the 1800s, little 30 pagers. So then what he said, I'm like, well, let's get together and maybe I can bring these back and fix all the problems. He goes, nope, you'll just write another book. I'm like, I don't want to write another book, bro. Let's fix these. And he convinced me, no, you have something else in you. I'm like, well, what is it? He goes, you tell me. So he helped me do the outline and that was it. And he says, you're on, now go. And I'd send him a chapter. He goes, that's perfect. Keep going. I'm like, really? You're not going to change it? He goes, no, just keep going. And then we got to the very finalization of it. He goes, now you need to illustrate this book. I'm like, who do I call to illustrate? He goes, I don't know. I don't illustrate my books. And then he said, so I called my brother. He says, call an artist. And that's what led to that. Then I ended up finding a publisher, and then we ended up having to do more illustrations.
See what happens when one guy just tells you to do something?
Yeah.
I mean, why don't you just do something?
Yeah.
And you got to believe in that guy, right?
Yeah.
And we all have that power with somebody. Like when me tell him, hey, we're going to illustrate this book. And then he illustrates it and you come up with something unbelievable. It was his idea how to illustrate. And then we end up getting a publisher. He goes, hey, I want more illustrations. Hey, Eric, you're not done yet. It's like, shit, we got to do more. And it took nearly 3 years to
It's
illustrate.
like 13 illustrations, and I went to 61 or something like that.
Wow.
Just an enormous amount. And the greatest compliments that I've received was from the person I hid the manuscript from, which is my own mother, because she has so much influence over us, even today, because we just highly respect our mom. And when she finally got to read it, it was a paperback copy like what you have.
Mhm.
I just went there to show her the art.
Mhm.
And she's like, I'm keeping this. I'm going to read it. And she read it in one night. She actually read it 3 times overnight. She's a reader. And she comes to me, she brings it back to me. And I'm like, oh, here it comes. Because she asked me before when I was writing it, she goes, because we come from a very religious background. As you know, the book I dedicated to God, our Savior Jesus Christ, and the Holy
absolutely.
Spirit. And of course, to all the people who are going to read this and hopefully get something from it. Well, she kept asking me, can you read that to the Savior? I'm like, Mom, he's already read it 3 times. And, so she finally brought that back. She goes, yes, you can. There's a few words he probably won't like. And then she said to me, the greatest 2 compliments from her that I've received that are the greatest things I've ever heard. This time she said, I wished I had this to give you when you turned 8. Which helped me to know that I was on the right track. And then she called me before we went to Miami, the day before we went to Miami a few weeks ago, and I'm working out. I'm halfway through a set. It's ringing. I hurry up and finish that set, set it down. I answered the phone. She goes, can I talk to you about your book? Like, oh, she finally found something. She's going to bust my chops. She goes, I just finished reading it for the 5th time. She goes, and I can now forgive myself for the failures that I had as a mother. Something along those lines. I'm like, whoa. One, I didn't think she still carried things, right? But I'm a father. I'm carrying a ton of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a grandfather as well. And I realize that you don't know what it is to be a father until you become a grandfather. So you carry a lot of guilt for things you did. She's carried guilt for 50 some years. She says, I've finally been able to let it go because of what you have here. So it was interesting for me to have that moment of spiritual awakening that I was able to speak to my own mother through words, and that God spoke to my mother through words. It was able to help her achieve something. So I went back, she shot me a picture of that last page where she highlighted those words and she wrote down what she thought, her thoughts at that moment of being able to forgive herself. And I read just before the highlights, and it says in there, you guys will read this, it says, if you've gotten this far, you're only 20% done. You have 4 more reads to really get it. It was on her 5th read. I didn't realize when I wrote those words, I was writing that for my own mother.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what happens with this book, I've already accomplished way more than I ever thought I could possibly accomplish with the book, which is achieving that. So to me, that's the greatest things I've ever experienced. I expect more greatness from it. If it can do that for her, hopefully it can do that for a lot of people.
And it will do that for a lot of people. That's why I said it's hard to describe, but go get it. 2 things. Number 1, where to get it. Number 2, in the book, you also talk about the retreat. And most importantly, you talk repeatedly about the concept of planning out your next 5 years. We hadn't talked about that at all. So just like give us 30 seconds about
as quick as
the
I can.
importance. No, you can take a minute, but the importance of planning out those 5 years. Why is it so crucial? And how can you help people actually get that done?
So first off, to get the book, go to quitjerkingoff.com. Yes, it's live. You can pre-order right now.
You heard it.
Quitjerkingoff.com where you go get it.
Quitjerkingoff.com.
Then you've got, as far as the retreat is concerned, so I learned years ago, which I thought was complete bullshit, but if you can write down and accomplish things. So I've done that. I've written things down and they've happened. They've happened in really weird ways. They come from amazing angles, but you got to write it. Then you have to share it with only those who have the greatest interest in mind for you, that want to see things happen for you. Don't share that easily. That whole casting pearls before swine thing. Because if you give it to the wrong people, they don't ensure things don't happen. But it's interesting how people that try and ensure things don't happen, how it accelerates you. I talk about the divine gift of accelerated education and the foot that's going to kick your ass all the time, right? That's all in there. But people will have a hard time sitting writing down what they want to accomplish in the next 5 years. They're like, oh, what I'll do is I'll go camping someday. I'll sit in the hills and I'll write this out. No, you won't. Okay, let's be honest with ourselves. If you're not going to sit down right damn now at the last page of chapter 1 and start writing, then you're not gonna. So I'm giving people the opportunity to listen. You can book with me. You can come to my place in the Ozark that I created with my mind and my pen. I wrote a 5-year vision for something about sitting on my porch in my rocking chair overlooking the Ozark mountain landscape, and within 2 months and 2 days later, I end up having that place. in a way crazy way. And I'll share that story at a different time because of our time situation. But I'm going to give you the opportunity to come to that place. It's going to cost you. I'm not doing it for freaking free. You're going to be able to stay on site. You're going to be fed. You're going to be taken care of. You're going to be able to sit there and focus on accomplishing that. I'm going to give you things to lead up to it a month in advance to get your mind prepared. And you are going to drill it to the point where you're so visual, it's so vivid on what you're going to accomplish and what you look like that with the two of us are going to be there to coach you through this. And not so much coach you on what to write. You need to do this. It's between you and God on how you write this. But we're going to help you get to the point where it's so vivid that we can see it to the extent that, like when he read a chapter, he was able to paint that chapter. He's going to be able to sit there and have that conversation with that person. You need to get it so vivid and so visual that he can actually paint who you are 5 years from now. So you're not only going to have that map of who you are going to be and what you're going to have and what you're willing to take as far as a meeting to get there, you'll actually be able to see who you are through the eyes of somebody else. That's what we're looking to accomplish here. And it's up to the person who's listening to this saying, yeah, I want to do that. Yeah. And you have to sign up for that. Now, are we prepared yet? No, we still got a lot of stuff we got to do on the place to get ready. But at the same time, I'm moving forward. I got to.
At the same time, we're also recording this a month before your book is actually being officially launched. So you got a couple of months to get everything ready.
Yeah, I'm going to get a chainsaw and start working on it. Literally, because I got to cut some trees down to make this work. But yes, it's going to happen down the path. We're here to help people. All you need to know is in the book. Yeah. It's all there.
It is.
But whether or not you're going to get off your ass and do it is up to you. And we're here to help facilitate.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, guys. This was a beautiful book to read. That's why I wanted you guys to come back. Everyone, when is the launch? Official launch is January
13th is the official launch. You can
pre-order it already. So go there and quitjerkingoff.com, right? Pre-order it right now. Get it delivered. Read it. Actually, don't make it just one of these shelf help books. So you can actually read it. It's an easy read. It's a fast read. It's going to make you laugh. There's so much truth in that book. And I absolutely love that. So thank you and I love the illustrations.
Thank you.
So thanks for being with me.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate it.
All right. Yeah, that's that. That's a wrap. As always, see you in the next show.